Hey everybody, how are you today? Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 31, and the theme is God's watch care. He's always watching over us. He watches over His people. That's a benefit that the church has. The people of God are always cared for. They're watched. God is watching. Now we've seen it in the life of Hagar and Ishmael. They even named a well, the place where God watches. And Isaac lives by that well. God watches over Isaac, and He watches over Abraham. And we find it here in chapter 31 that He tells Jacob, let me read the verse, I think it's verse 12. He says, I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. So God is watching, and it sounds like Laban's still working. He's still doing. I've seen all that he does to you. So He's doing it to Jacob. Jacob complains. He's changed his wages 10 different times. And you notice something, there's so many things here, but one of the things that you see in this passage is that despite God's watch care, He still allows suffering. Jacob still had to endure the wage change 10 times. Just because God watches over us doesn't mean that we're not going to suffer. He uses the work of the wicked man to bring us into purity, to help refine us. And so here Laban is performing that work for Jacob, but God doesn't allow Laban to hurt Jacob. So He allows suffering to happen, but He keeps a tight rein on what it is that Laban's up to. And when He tells Jacob to go, Jacob's ready to go. He suffered enough, and he's ready to do what God's commanded him. And the Lord reminds him, you remember the vow you made, the pillar you raised. So He reminds him of that promise. So God even sees in the past, sees in the present, sees what's going to happen in the future, and He takes care of all of it. He sees the whole thing, the whole scope of our existence, of our faithfulness, of our fruitfulness. He sees everything. And He allows suffering into our lives so that we become more fruitful, and so that we're ready to obey Him. And so Jacob, when God says to him, go back home, go back to the land, go back to Bethel, Jacob packs up, gathers his wives together and says, this is what the Lord said to me. And I love the response of Leah and Rachel, because there in verse 16, they say, what God has said to you, do. So they're right behind him. God told him to go. His wives said to him, whatever God said, that's what we want. You do it. So Jacob goes, and he goes just like he came, under the watch care of the Lord. So we don't need to leave Padanaram and go back to Israel. But what we need to do is leave the world and go back to Christ. We need to leave the world and go back to the church. We need to walk in holiness and make our way into Christ's likeness. That's His way for us. And it's, outlined for us in the commandments, and it's outlined for us in the New Testament. And so that's what He wants us to do. He wants us to leave and to draw closer, to go back to the vow, to make sure we keep our promise. And He's watching. So I hope this finds you well, and I hope that I'll see you guys this Sunday, and talk to you soon. Bye.